This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. Three, two, one, and welcome everybody to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. I am your host, John Allen, and today I'm speaking with Danielle Stensrud. Hi.
Hi.
How's it going over there or up there in Oppdal, Norway?
It is going good up here. So how's it going down there?
You know, life is good. It's been a quiet, lazy day. My wife worked night shift. The kids were locked in their rooms, gaming and doing God knows what. And I was just kind of chilling. I did a little bit of reading, did a little bit of writing, watched an HBO series, a couple episodes of that, and just had a relaxed day. And here we go. I'm starting off my afternoon by talking to you. So my day is good.
Wow, it sounds like a dream come true. When I hear you speak, you know, you got to hang out and relax. Your kids are a little bit older than mine. I don't have that luxury. My kids are waking up at 6 o'clock, dragging me here and there, going skiing, staying active all day. So now, finally, maybe now I can start to unwind and relax a little bit.
Well, now we have those kind of days around here too, but it's just today was kind of slow and easy and nice. I liked it. Okay. I love my kids, but it's great when they get out of my face as well. So
I understand. I'm here with you.
Now, you have the honor, you have the distinction of being a coach for the first ever youth basketball program in Oppdal. Is that right?
That's what I hear. That's what they tell me, that there's never been an organized basketball program here before, which makes sense because this town, it's a ski town and it's so dominated by skiing and, you know, of course, soccer in the summer times. And there's just so many other outside activity things to do. But yeah, I was approached by a mom who said her son is really into basketball. And they heard through the grapevine, I'm not really sure how, but my name came up about maybe potentially a coach and if I was up for it. And of course I said, yes, I'd love to. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun until, you know, now we can't do practice because of Corona, but
how many kids
how it is.
How many kids are in the program now? How big is the team?
Well, right now we haven't made an official team yet. It's just more like an open gym type of concept. Okay. Just because we didn't know even what the interest level would be for kids wanting to play basketball. So the first couple of practices I was in the U.S. And then when they started, and then I was in quarantine, but my first practice, there was like 30 some kids there.
That's a pretty good turnout.
And then it ranged from different ages. Yeah, from like 14 up to 18 maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty big turnout. They were surprised. And we had the whole gym rented out, so we got the full court. But yeah, it's not easy to try to teach so many kids at so many different levels. And they're beginners. There's some that maybe kind of knew before, but I would say they're all beginner level, and the rules and stuff like that. There's a lot to any sport, there's a lot to any sport to learn. And
well, I would imagine,
for us,
I would imagine that most Norwegians who are going to practice basketball are new beginners, because it's just not, you have your semi-pro teams. I know that Tromsø has a team. Oslo has a couple of teams. So basketball is known here, but it's not well known because, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, it's dominated by soccer and skiing and handball, and basketball to them here is this exotic, a very American thing that they may dibble dabble in it a little bit, but nobody has that big, or not many people have that big interest. How can you go back to how this activity with basketball came about? Who was the driving force behind it? Because somebody came to you about it, so you didn't start it, but somebody wanted you to get involved. Who are these people?
Well, I think, the person that reached out to me was just a mom of a 16-year-old. Him and his little group of friends were really into basketball. They are very interested in basketball, and they're their own little group since no one really does that here. So I've played basketball here in Oppdal before for fun, in the summer times outside, which the courts aren't any good. So maybe I've played just a few times. So I think that mom just spoke with some other people in Oppdal, and my name came up. So they sent a message, and they thought it'd be great but I let her know. I said, I speak Norwegian, that's fine, but I've never tried to speak Norwegian in basketball terms, and I don't think I'll be able to coach very well. So I said, I'm going to only speak English. So the kids are doing really well. They're older, 16, maybe 14 is the youngest and up. So they understand me, which is great.
Well, that's an interesting thing you bring up, the language issue, because I speak fluent Norwegian, but I was approached a couple of years ago about coaching American football here in Drammen. And I went to a couple of their practices just to kind of feel it out and to, interact with the team and the other coaches a little bit. And I realized right away that there were certain terms that we use back home in America for football that just doesn't fit to take a direct translation into Norwegian. I remember I got real hung up on blocking. Go and block that guy. Block. How do I say it? Block. And it's just little things like that fit in day-to-day language, but the sports language is different. Interesting thing to have to work out.
But, when you're an athlete, when you've done a sport your whole life, it is like a second language. It is a second part of you that's so deep rooted in me, like basketball. So I could never try to teach that in a different language because I've never done it before. But luckily the kids help each other, and I go slow to explain different things. But I told her right away, yes, I can help. I really want to, but there's no way I'm going to even try to do it in Norwegian. So, but it's been fine. The kids are very, very well ask me if they need help, or they talk with each other if one doesn't understand. So they're big. If they were little, like if they were 5, 6 years old, I probably would have said no. I don't think I can help, but no, it's going good. I'm happy to do this.
How long have you been here in Norway?
I moved here in 2011 permanently.
Okay.
But the first time I came here was in 2010.
Okay, yeah. And you're enjoying yourself, all is well?
Yeah, it's harder, I think, now as the older my kids get, the harder it is, I think, because my family sees them pretty often, I would say a few times a year, but they don't have that time to build a relationship with my family because we live so far away. So I don't know, it doesn't get any easier.
Now, I know we're kind of stepping away from the sports and athletics issue, but here's something that's very interesting. How do you deal with that thing, that new occurrence, that new thing in your life that you have to deal with when you realize for each day that passes that your children may be losing more and more of their Americanness, or at least losing that connection that they have with family back home? Is that an issue for you? And if it is, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's always an issue. I think what I do every day is just make sure that they speak English. They've done that since they were babies. So now that they're 6 and 8, they know, if they're going to talk to me or when I'm around, it's going to be in English. And if I hear them speak Norwegian to each other, I'll just yell from the other room English, and they'll switch right away. So I always just make sure that's a must for me, that they get the language down perfectly. And we read books and everything like that in English, so they can at least learn that too. But it's really hard to be so far away from America and try to hold any sort of American roots at all. And then when I'm really just I'm sick of it, I need a break, then we just book a trip to the U.S.
Yeah, and I tell people, I am a longtime sufferer of homesickness, but it really boils down to just buying a plane ticket. And you have this, with your stops and turnovers, you might have up to 10, 12 hours of flying time, but you come home and you can reconnect and you can get that, you can charge that battery with all things American. But that's us as adults, I feel it's almost a sense of guilt that my children, I don't know, it's not enough that we can just take a flight home once a year or once every 2 years. I feel like they're missing out on some. I don't know, it's a personal struggle, but it's a common struggle for those of us who are expats here in Norway from the States.
When I was, before my husband and I had any kids, we'd have conversations about, how is this going to go when we have kids? It's not just two different countries, but it's two different continents, and it's really far, it's expensive, and there's a whole lot of factors. So one thing I've always said, which I am still saying to this day, that when my kids get, around 13, 14 years old, I want them to live in the U.S. for high school and get at least that experience. Right now, they're in elementary school. I don't care that much. But when they get older, it's just not going to be an option for me for them to live here and just never get that, because if they want to go to college someday, they're going to have to do it in Norway, where it's like free.
Where it's free.
If they're going to get that American, just upbringing, at least a little bit of it, it's going to be in high school. For a few years. I
have very similar thoughts when it comes to our kids. Snoopy and I's kids are 15 and 13. And for our daughter who's 15 now, we're kind of thinking, okay, within the next year or two, it would be great to have her doing some sort of exchange program, going to high school back in the States. And then the same situation will come in a couple of years for our son. It's something that I feel they have to do so that they can taste that real Americanness. They get that from me. They are
American too.
Yes,
so I think
absolutely.
I think they would appreciate it when they get a little older.
Sure. So we kind of stepped away from the athletics and stuff, but back to sports and athletics. You have an athletic background yourself. What sports did you involve yourself in back in high school?
In high school specifically, I was a 3-sport athlete, which is the most they would let you to do. So it was volleyball in the fall, basketball in the winter, and golf in the spring. But growing up, my dad had 3 daughters, and he is like, he went to college for football, and he super good baseball player. Like, he's a stud athlete. So he could have appreciated a son, I think, but he got daughters. So he always had me in everything and anything. Softball. Once I got to high school level, I dropped softball because I'd have to choose volleyball or softball. So I did that. Yeah. But yeah, I was always very active in athletics, and it was like, it meant something different to me back in the 90s, early 2000s, than probably maybe some people have here. I don't know. Cause it was hard growing up in the 90s in Colorado and, in the U.S., probably for a lot of people. Times were different back then, and sports was really something that I knew I could fall back on in hard times, that I always was going to be busy with sports and have my friends there and all that.
Now you say it was hard. It was hard growing up in the 90s in Colorado. How so? What was difficult about it?
Well, where I grew up.
What part of Colorado?
Southwestern Colorado. Okay. Montrose, it's called. It's a small town. It's like 20,000 people, which is small for, really anywhere. So, I had 2 parents that worked 2 jobs full time, and my mom worked at a bank, and the hours are it was 8 to 5, pretty long days. And my dad also worked, and when I was 9, they got divorced. So I chose to live with my dad full time. And it was a struggle being with a single dad, being so young, taking on a lot of responsibility and all that. But we always had our sports, my dad and I. We connected through that very well, even still. So he's probably still the only person that can beat me in basketball. He's such a good athlete. So he was someone I could always look up to when it came to athletics and in sports. And it really does teach you something. He was my basketball coach until I got to high school. And, if you have a good coach, and I think for my dad, he was the best coach I've ever had, because he was very, very hard on me.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. I appreciate that very much now, which is something how I feel like maybe my kids don't get that part of the American experience with being involved in sports here.
Yes, it's quite different. I can relate to what you're saying about that discipline that was demanded by the coach. I'm Facebook friends with pretty much all of my high school football coaches. I was also a multi-sport athlete, but football is what I excelled in. I actually got a scholarship and played in college. But I always give a shout out to my coaches. So shout out to my coaches, Norton High School, the Panthers, Coach Dada, Coach Loro, and the head coach Saylor. Those guys demanded, it was a daily occurrence that they would be in several team members' face. I can just see it. They grab hold of the face mask, pull the helmet, and they're right in, nose to nose, yelling, screaming, cursing a little bit. That wouldn't fly here in Norway.
Never.
It doesn't fly here in Norway. I've seen it.
No.
If I go back just a couple, 3 years, when my son, when we moved down south here to Drammen, and my son started playing soccer, I can remember being shocked at how silent and distant the coaches were. They did not coach. They were pretty much just babysitting the kids. They don't coach. They don't correct. They barely encourage them. They're kind of just there. And there was I saw no guidance. I saw no coaching. So here you are now, an American athlete with your athletic background, with that style of firm coaching that you're used to. What kind of adjustments have you had to make? I'm going to just assume that you've made some adjustments now as a coach for Norwegians.
Yeah, it's a little different, because I think if the team I was helping with, were at a different level than they are, I would be harder.
Yeah.
Now I kind of can't, because they really don't know the sport. So I can't get too mad if they mess up. When we had to go back to teaching layups and how to dribble, and just completely back to the basics. So I don't like if they're messing around. I will be strict with things like that if they're not listening or if they're messing around. But as far as just being how I would be as a normal coach, I just have to pull myself back and remind myself they are beginners. I can't be too hard on them. But I think the kids that want it, and we've definitely had some kids who have stopped coming, and that's fine for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't like it. Maybe there was too many people. I don't know, but that's fine with me. If there was 10 people, that's perfect. That's a team right there. I don't need 30.
Yeah.
But right now it's just, I want everyone to have fun.
Yeah.
And learn, and eventually it'll get to a different level. But yeah,
but eventually in another year or two, when you have this generation, if you will, of these players on your team, as they gain skills, will you then raise up your expectations when it comes to discipline, when it comes to how much effort they put into their training?
I think I would now if I could have a smaller group. Like if I didn't have to help 30 kids, I could focus on 10.
Well, you're not the only coach, are you? Aren't there other coaches, or?
There sometimes have been another guy who's been there to help a little bit, because we had to split the group, 15 here, 15 here by age, and still but the kids are very interested. How is it in the U.S.? How do you do it in the U.S.? And I told them, growing up, playing competitively, you're a team of 10, maybe 12. 12 is even a little too much, but 10. And then you will have 3 coaches. So I said, trying to teach them offense and defense.
It's a handful.
It's hard. And we only practice once a week, for an hour and a half. So it's really not that much to make an impact.
If you could have it your way, how many times a week would you practice with them?
I would do it like we would do it back home, have a basketball season.
Talk about how they do things here. You and I know, but a lot of our American listeners or non-Norwegian listeners have no clue how Norwegian youth athletics is set up. And I just roll my eyes and shake my head. every time this issue comes up. But tell my listeners how do things work as far as how often they practice and what's expected of them. And
in the US?
Here in Norway. Talk about how things are here in Norway.
Oh, well, I mean, it's basically like, I feel it's a little more like an open gym concept, come once a week if you want to. And, if you come, that's great. You can try your hardest or not at all, but we're just happy to have you kind of attitude. It just drives me nuts. My kids, my son, he's 8. He's been doing Taekwondo, which he's really into, because if there was karate or wrestling, I would put him in wrestling right away. But there isn't that option where we live. The nearest one is like an hour and a half away. So, Taekwondo is what we have here, but it's once a week. And I'm like, this is not enough. I wish that if it was a little bit more, okay, we're going to do at least 3 times a week. That's fine. I think that would be okay for that young of kids. But yeah, it's hard because you really can't build on any skill for 1.5 hours a week.
Well, not only can they not build on their skill, I question how they can truly build an interest for the sport when it's only once a week. Because here in Norway, they have, it's in Norway, it's participation trophy to the max. Not only do they get participation trophies where there's absolutely no focus or emphasis on performance, they if you take it down to practice level, to training, you're just supposed to go and have fun. And my statement against that is, if you're just having fun at a new activity and you're not exerting yourself, because exertion means discomfort, and discomfort is not always fun. It's the results of discomfort that are fun, right? So if they don't demand that these kids push themselves and try to be as good as they can, I believe they're doing these kids a disservice, because these kids are missing out on a huge element of the concept of enjoyment.
Yeah.
You agree?
I agree.
You agree? Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah. My kids were skiing a week ago and they got a participation award, or a trophy. It was a full-blown trophy. And they've gotten them before when they were younger, doing different things. Okay, whatever, it bothered me, but I didn't think too much of it. But now that they're 6 and 8, they get these trophies for participating in a little downhill ski thing. They both sucked. They didn't go fast. They didn't, they were just there and did it. So I was like, no, we're going to give this back, or not give it back, but we're just not going to give this any attention, because they're at the age now where they really believe that they're the best. They think that they're the best because they have a trophy. Look, Mom, I won. And I'm like, you didn't win anything.
That is good parenting. I love hearing that. I'm giving you a virtual high five right now. That's what I do with my kids. When they would come home with a trophy and I had been there, I had seen what they did and didn't do, I made sure I told them, you didn't get this trophy because you excelled or because you did well. You got it because everybody gets one.
Yeah.
So I made sure that they understood that. And I know there's some listeners, especially Norwegian listeners, but maybe even some non-Norwegian listeners who think I'm out of line for doing that. Sorry, I don't care. People can do what they want with their kids, but I want my kids to understand. And a child is never too young to understand the concept of the benefits of discipline, the benefits of exertion, and what it means to truly put yourself into something that you're doing and you want to do it well.
I just think after they got that last week, they think that they won and they're the best, and that no one's better than them. But I'm like, well, you're wrong. First of all, it just makes them not try harder because they already think that they won. And I'm like, well, you need to try. You need to, every time you go skiing or whatever you're doing, you need to get better every time. And there are people, I know this is very not common or popular in Norway. No one wants to think that they're better than anyone else. And I get it, but I don't get it, because there are people always better than us at something, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. I won't give them that much, because I just don't get that at all. Because to teach kids that concept is so removed from the reality of life. You're doing them. These people are doing them a disservice. I am a true believer in. You have to be aware. you have to have a certain amount of self-awareness. You have to know what you're good at and you have to know what you're bad at. And that's going to make life more comfortable for you if you have that self-awareness. But they're teaching this generation and maybe the generation before then as well, here in Norway, that you don't have to have that self-awareness. And I wonder and I worry what that's going to do with society over here.
I'm a little worried too. I think worry is a good word to use because I was thinking about it, last week, and just everything that I've gone through in my life, I would never want my kids to go through. You always want better for your children than you had, and that's a good thing. But I am the person I am because of my struggles, and it made me a stronger person. And I just think if my kids don't learn that grittiness, to really just have a hard time when it's hard and learn how good it feels when you succeed at something. I just feel like that's kind of not an emphasis.
Well, it's healthy. Struggle is healthy.
Yeah.
Struggle, conflict, these big tasks that seem too big, but we actually meet our goals and succeed in spite of the largeness of that task before us. That leads to growth. It leads to, it's all about self-awareness, knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not good at, and to take away that awareness. And that's what a lot of parents are doing. That's what a lot of the different systems in society are doing. They're taking away a child's ability to have self-awareness. And that can't be healthy. I say the opposite. Struggle is healthy. Winning and losing is healthy. I don't think I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
I think it's very healthy to lose. I think it's very healthy to not win. And what are you going to do when you lose? You're going to try harder.
Yeah.
The same as everyone. You're not going to get any better. And I think that's fine. It might work for some families in Norway, some parents or whatever. But for me and my family and how I grew up, it's a problem. And
well, now this is how you grew up and this is your thoughts, but you do have a Norwegian husband. What does he say about these things?
Yeah, he doesn't say too much. I think he agrees. He's not like a typical Norwegian. I think maybe because he studied in the U.S. in college, which is that's how we did that 1 year abroad. And obviously he's been with me for 11 years. So he doesn't, I think, and just like a Norwegian, we're very similar in our parenting, which is great.
Yeah.
It's really good. I think he's on the same level. I think as far as the participation awards go, he might be more okay with it than I am, but
yeah, Snoopy and I were together for 6 years before we had our first kid. So we talked about all of this stuff for those 6 years. So that, we kind of hit the ground running and we were pretty much in a symbiotic thought process. So it's never been an issue. But I could imagine that being at least something to discuss over the dinner table between some American Norwegian couples. But it's good to not have to have that discussion. It's good to be.
No, you don't have to. He's very much the same, that he also believes that you should work for what you have. It's not just a given that you're going to get good things by not working hard. So he is a believer in that, which is good. So at least. Is he from
Oppdal? Is that why you live in Oppdal now?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's from there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my wife is a fish out of water. She's no, not totally. She grew up for the most part about 30 kilometers away from here, but she also has roots up in Finnmark. So she's got a different way of thinking than a lot of the people down here, and believe me, it's refreshing. I married the right woman, to say it mildly.
Oh, shout out.
Now, so tell me, what level of success, or how well did you excel in sports when you were active in team sports? Were you just a middle of the road athlete, or were you a touch above?
Yeah. For when it came to basketball, I was good. I had many knee injuries that plagued my high school career. So my last season, actually in practice, my kneecap popped out of place, which is really bad. Yeah, so I ended up having a surgery that winter, and then that just ended my basketball career. But
terrible.
Then I focused on golf. after that, because golf is obviously not too hard on the knees.
Yeah.
So, and now it's still something that I play as an adult. Always when I go back home, if I can join a league, even just temporarily while I'm there, I always play, and it's always me and the guys. It was always me and the guys, and which is fine because
you're talking about basketball now, right?
Basketball or whatever,
yeah.
Anything, yeah. But I love still being competitive and rough and tough, and just feeling someone to like push up on. It's a good feeling. Yeah. A contact sport, it's good, and yeah. So, and then that was it. Really, I moved to Norway when I was 19. So. Not too long after I was done with high school, I came here.
Wow. So that's interesting. Hats off to you for being that brave. And I think brave is the right word to use. I was 33. I had just turned 33 when I came here, and it was rough. I was very, I
would not call me brave.
I call you brave.
I would say naive. That was probably a better word.
Okay. So naive. If you were naive in coming here, then that means, or can I say that it means, or can I ask if it means then that you ran into some surprises after you got here, things that you didn't know you were going to be faced with? Is that?
I think when you're that young, you just think, oh, wow, Europe, we're going to go to Europe. Oh my God. And you don't have even really any sense of where Norway even is in Europe. You just know it's Europe. So I think I was just so excited to go and travel and be young and experience something. And then, and then after we get married and we, had our first son, then I started thinking like, okay, what am I doing here? Then you start thinking about life. Like, well, you don't really think about those choices. When I was 19, I just got on a plane and came here, but I didn't really think about 1 year, or 2 or 3, 4 years from now, how's it going to be? You just kind of live in the moment when you're that young.
See but to me, that's bravery. I guess if I think back to when I was 19, I barely had the guts to go away to college on my football scholarship. And it was like 2.5, 3 hours away. That was such a huge task for me to leave home and start that process. I couldn't imagine, you're saying when you were 19, you're thinking, oh, cool, Norway or Europe? Yeah, let's go. I would be thinking, oh my God, Europe? Oof, no. So I was very, I guess I was naive, but in a different way. Me being naive brought on my fear of big changes at that time. And then to come here, because see, I was 33. I had already had a great career that had gotten started as a police officer, a narcotics detective, doing quite well with that. And then all of a sudden I'm faced with this other thing called moving to Norway. And it was, I don't know. So I call you brave. I don't think they're.
I mean, it's just, I don't have any regrets doing it, but I think for my children, when they are 19, 20, thinking about different things, at least I can help them a little bit to think about a little bit long term.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And it's fine. It brought a whole new life than I could have ever imagined.
Do you think you're better off? Let me ask you this. Here's a good question from a struggling podcast host. I come up with good questions every once in a while. Do you think you're better off living here in Norway than you would be if you were back home in Colorado?
Like right now? No, I don't think so.
Really?
Right now, I don't think me personally am better off here than there. But I think maybe as a whole family, as a unit, probably.
That's an interesting distinction. Why? Just fill out that answer. Explain that answer.
Let's just, because I think my husband's from Norway. He has a master's degree. He's worked here. My children are Norwegian. And I'm this, I'm not from here. I'm an immigrant or whatever you want to call me. I'm a little bit different. And I've always struggled with finding, friends and finding people I click with and finding a good job. like a permanent job, getting a job, even if you do have an American education, it's not easy here because everyone here has master's degrees. Everyone has like 3 or 4 and they're from here. And of course they're going to probably hire a Norwegian before they hire an immigrant who struggles with the language.
And also a lot of jobs will require you to redo that bachelor's or that master's or even that doctorate. They won't accept the American credentials.
No, they won't. So I was, I think I would do better in my own country. Yes. But I think my husband does fine. My kids are fine. So I'm just hanging on till they get a little older, till they get to high school. And I'm like, let's move back. Let's do this.
If Snoopy had gotten her way, here's one of the few battles that she has lost and I have won. She wanted to move back in the States, like really, really wanted to move back maybe 10, 12 years ago. And I convinced her to kind of hold out and let's just keep this Norwegian adventure going. And it always amazes me that was the situation. I would think that me being away from my home, I would be the one that would want to go back. But no, it was her. And now I don't want to say that I want to go back now because I don't, but I have this constant weight of homesickness that is on me. I can't describe how much I enjoy when my podcast guest is an American. It's like medicine for my soul because it just renews that connection. I get to speak English and hear unaccented English back and share, some commonalities that we have and talk about our individual experiences. It's medicine for my soul and it cures that homesickness in the moment. Are you homesick? It sounds like you could, if you could go back now and take the family with you, it sounds like maybe you would do that.
I probably would, yes. Yeah. If I could, I would. But it's different to visit the U.S. now because, we don't own a home. So it's not like we're home.
And you've been back recently since the COVID pandemic, right? Yeah. I was back in October. Yeah, I came back. So obviously for us, the borders are open for American citizens and we have Norwegian passports too. So we can go back and forth. But when we're going back, it's not quite a vacation. No. But it's not quite being home either. So even though we're there, There you are. Sorry, I shouldn't apologize. It's just a weak internet connection somewhere. But now you're back. Okay, you were saying now about when you go back home, it's like this in between thing. It's not quite a vacation, but you don't feel like you're just a visitor. Yeah.
Well, you probably might feel the same way, even though I'll stay with my mom and my grandpa and my dad and whoever. It's not our own space and it's not our own home. And
do you notice that, or do you feel like things have changed? Every time I go back, well, first of all, I have to say I haven't been back home often enough. There was a period when I was running, I used to own 3 gyms that I started up north. And there was like a 7, almost an 8-year period where I didn't go home because I was so busy doing that. And then I went home after like 7 or 8 years and I felt like I had time traveled. Everyone else had moved on and I was left behind because things just seemed a little bit out of whack, a little off kilter. Everything just seemed, and then in a couple of times since that long period of not going home, every time I've gone back, I feel more and more left behind. And it's depressing. It's like, this is my country. This is my hometown. These are my people. Why do I feel like this? Strange.
No, when I go back to where I grew up, I feel like nothing has changed.
Oh, you're so lucky. That's so good. That's what you experienced. That's good.
Necessarily a good thing, but everyone is the same and not too much changes. But my mom just moved to Orlando this past summer, so we'll be splitting our time between Florida and Colorado, and I'm just so excited for that. Because, like I said, I'm from a small town, and then now I live in a town of 6,000 people, which is even smaller. So to go to somewhere like Orlando, where there's how many, 23 million people in the state of Florida, like no one knows me. It's so refreshing.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about other people, just focus on ourselves.
Well, I'm from small town Ohio, and when we used to live up north, up in Finnmark, it was easy to adjust to because I felt like there was no adjustment to be made. You know, the rural aspects of it, the laid back lifestyle and everything, it really fit. So that coming into a city, like here in Drammen, I think there's like maybe 60,000 people here. I think it's too big. I feel like I'm drowning in people because I'm just not used to that. I'm used to small town life. I think I would fit in well. I would fit in well in Oppdal.
Yeah, probably. You can come visit.
Hey, there you go.
Come skiing. You know, Norwegians, they're pretty good at keeping distance from people despite Corona. I mean, even before. So when I've been in a big city, we lived in Trondheim for a period of time. We lived in Stavanger, which is obviously bigger than what we have now. It's a city. I didn't feel like it was that big, though.
Yeah, Stavanger, I believe, isn't that it's the third, or is it the fourth? Yeah, Stavanger is smaller than Trondheim, isn't it? The largest city is Oslo, second largest is Bergen, and then I believe Trondheim, and then Stavanger. But for a major city in Norway, Stavanger is very small.
Yeah. But now I'm used to it now because when we get cabin people here for the weekend, whatever, and the stores are jam packed, I can't handle it. I'm like, I'm not waiting to buy some milk. So you really feel it. But it's good. I think the whole Norwegian life, it's good for the family. Definitely.
Yeah.
For the kids. It's just a different system. The school systems are completely different, and just everything is a little bit different than what we're used to.
I can remember when our kids started school here and, started getting involved in school and after school activities, sports and all that stuff. It would be an almost daily venting between both me and my wife. It wasn't just me, it was her also, just ranting about how screwed up and inefficient things were. One of the biggest things that we used to rant about is the need or the burden that our kids' athletic activity put on us. Because here in Norway, and I kind of wanted to touch on this a little bit about another difference between youth athletics here in Norway compared to back home in the States is that it's not connected to the school. Back home in the States, right, we would go to school until 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then we would go to the locker room right away, change into our football uniform, and then out on the field to practice. And then when we were done, because it was such a small town, we could ride a bike, or because you can drive when you're 16, you can jump in the car, your own car or your buddy's car, and you're home. Well, you just can't do that here because it's not connected to the school. It's in some, it could be at some field that's maybe, 10, 15 miles away from where you live. And God forbid if it's a league sport and maybe they have to try. We've had actually soccer tournaments that our son was supposed to be in that was way up in Geilo, which is like a 2.5 hour drive from where we live. So there's that logistics thing that falls upon the parents here in Norway. It's rough. It's a crazy system.
I loved growing up. I mean, I think it's the same throughout the whole U.S. Maybe it's not, but at least in Colorado, the sports connected with the school didn't start until 6th grade, which was our first year in middle school. Yeah. Before, when it's in elementary school, then it's more just like rec league. Sure. From 6th grade on, from middle school on, I was so bad. I was a bad student. I did terrible. I had bad grades. And I think that was a good motivation for me to stay in sports, because once you're in a sport, you have to do good. You have to get good grades to be able to play. But it also takes you out of school. If you have a game, you can leave early, which was a bonus for me. I think when you have stuff like that in middle school and high school, especially sports, you get a sense of like school pride, right? Like
sure, absolutely.
you want to do good because you're representing your school. And I think that's a good thing that they don't really necessarily have here.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that with the school. But I think that that's such a good, healthy thing. I was in band too. I played the trumpet. So I did everything.
There's a whole social aspect that we have back in the States that's connected to school and athletics that's missing here in Norway. I mean, kids have their friends, they have their little cliques and whatnot, but I don't know. I guess they're not missing what they don't know, but us.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
But we as Americans we know. And again, that ties back into that. It's almost a feeling of guilt that I have that my kids aren't experiencing certain American things. And that's why it's so important that we somehow make it work, that they can go back there and take a year of high school, take that senior year in an American high school. Although that scares me too, because I think my kids are so innocent and naive. We talked about being naive. They are naive, and I'm afraid they would get eaten alive. I'm afraid they'll be like a tiny little guppy in a sea of sharks.
Oh no, they'll be fine.
Oh God, I hope so. Oh,
it'll make them stronger. No.
Well, yeah, we talked about challenges. Don't we want our kids to have challenges? Yeah.
Don't we want this? This is what we're talking about here now.
Oh gosh, I'm eating my words now. Oh, gosh. What are some of the lessons that you learned as a athlete that you carry with you to this day?
Well, I think a lot of it is work ethic. I've definitely been in situations, not just in sports, but in life, when you really feel like you want to quit. You really just feel like, okay, I think it's just too hard. But then I have that down in me, my work ethic, that it tells me not to quit, and I don't. And I think if I didn't have that throughout my whole life, I probably would have quit at many different things a long time ago.
Yeah. That's,
I think that's probably something that I want to instill in my kids, is just working hard and being determined. And it's not something that's just necessarily learned so easy. It's kind of grown, if you start with it when you're small, it'll grow with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that work ethic, I tell you, for me, the work ethic and the discipline that I have today, it has its roots in athletics, especially from like 8th grade on.
Yeah.
I learned, if I train hard, if I practice hard, if I run those 100-yard sprints in football practice, and do those tire drills and everything, I will be a better running back. And then I had a tangible payoff, which was my college scholarship. And then all of that just bled into my time in the U.S. Marines, which then built upon that whole idea of working hard and being disciplined and then getting the payoff from it, which then bled into my civilian life as a police officer, which then bled into my life here in Norway. So it's all about focus. It's all about discipline. It's all about not being afraid to sweat. It's not only you shouldn't be afraid to sweat. I seek the sweat. I look for that challenge because I know I'm going to grow from it. Yeah.
Right. But some people, I think, especially that aren't used to that kind of pressure, they break when things get hard. And I don't want my sons to be those kind of people.
Yeah, I've put pressure. Yeah, I have a self-imposed task that I'm trying so hard. I'm not trying. I'm doing. I am teaching my children that concept of seek the sweat. Be aware of what you can do well and what you cannot do well. And then those things that you can't do well, if you want to do them well, don't run from that. Try and find situations that you can put yourself in so that you can tackle that weakness and turn it into something that actually benefits you. So seek the sweat. Right. That's something that I'm actively teaching to my kids now. Yeah. And it all comes from athletics. The whole idea of it comes from my childhood with athletics.
Well, and you still shout out your old coaches, so obviously they've had a great impact on your life, and you're very appreciative of that work.
Absolutely. I can remember my high school football coach, Dale Saylor. he puts, I mean, I can still hear his voice and see the look in his eyes with certain catchphrases that he used to motivate me, to berate me if I wasn't doing well. I don't know. I think kids are missing, and not every child has to be an athlete. I hope people don't misunderstand me. Not every child has to be an athlete, or not every child that is an athlete has to be good. But when it's so difficult to get into competitive athletics here in Norway, athletics are here, but they're not very competitive. And I think that aspect of competitiveness would do these kids well if it was in place here in Norway. I think they're missing something.
I don't know. Maybe it's because the country is so small. There are definitely really amazing athletes that have come from Norway.
Sure. Look at all the skiers. Look at the skiers.
How many of these?
Yeah, look at the skiers, the handball team, the ladies handball team. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So there are definitely good athletes that come from here. But what was I going to say? I think, I don't want to offend a nation here, but
there's a lot more of them. I can help you with 3 or 4 of them, but after that, you're on your own. So,
it's a different concept from when we were small in America. We're normal people. Maybe you're more normal. I'm normal compared to you. You're a Marine, you're a college football player, you're way up there. I'm just a normal mom, right? But I still learned what I learned through athletics when I was small in America, and it taught me a lot about life. And I don't want my kids to lose that by not experiencing that in Norway, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, but I have to correct you on something. I'm sorry, what'd you say? I didn't hear that.
I was going to say the women in Norway, they're very good, but they're older, right? They're older people who chose this life.
Yeah.
They probably worked hard as they got older, since they were 5.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying, but I have to correct you on one thing. I'm a normal guy too. I've just been incredibly blessed. I've done some really cool stuff. I'm doing some really cool stuff. I've been quite fortunate to be able to do things that I'm interested in. That I don't think that makes me any less normal than anybody else. I'm just a normal guy.
You're like Hulk. Yeah. You're the Hulk, I think. You have a little bit more than.
But
you've done a good job.
Well, thank you for that. I'm quite blessed. Couldn't do it without a little bit of luck along the way. And I will say this: I'm extremely driven. But again, this comes from when I was a kid, especially in my high school years, like from middle school, from 8th grade on, I was extremely depressed. Felt like I just didn't belong. I didn't fit in. Doesn't matter how I portrayed myself to be. Inside, I was depressed and I felt like I didn't belong. And what saved me, what kept me going, was sports. I took out that frustration and that loneliness and I put it on the football field, or I put it on the track, or I put it on the basketball court. I also wrestled for a while. I put it there and it drove me to success. So it put me in a position where I was wide open for everything positive that one could get from athletics. You know what I mean? Because it meant so much to me. It's literally what kept me going. I hated going to school. I hated I was so uncomfortable in the social that had to do with the social aspects. There's a lot of reasons for it. There's a lot of podcasts I've done about that, but that was the situation, and it was athletics that got me through all of that. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so I think there's a delay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish, please.
No, there is a delay. I think one of us just has a bad internet, but we're marching forward. No, it's just I don't know what my point was going to be, but it was sports. It was athletics, especially football, that carried me through all those difficult years. So, of course, being in that situation and being quite aware how much football and athletics in general meant to me, I wasn't this, a lot of kids can be stubborn. A lot of kids can be like, oh, these adults, they don't know what they're doing. And that's going to get in the way of their coachability. But I didn't have any of that stuff in the way. I was wide open to be taught and to learn my lessons through sports so that I could be as good as I could be, so that I could be happier during those, high school years. So I was lucky. I was, in a way, my misery was to my fortune.
Yeah. Well, no, I think we're both very blessed to be able to have that athletic background that's kept with us forever. Because not everyone does that. Like you said before, not everyone likes sports or athletics, and they don't have to.
No.
There's plenty of things in life to do that doesn't involve sports. But I think I really miss in the U.S. just there's so much more options for so many different sports than they have here that I wish would come here, but I don't think would, like baseball and softball. I know there's some small groups maybe in Oslo, but it's not the same when you're 5,
Yeah. There's
it's just hard here, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because this country, its population is small and the country is so spread out, but there's just so many other things offers that they don't hear, and it's hard to find. Yeah,
I think they have this traditional interest in soccer, this traditional interest in skiing and in handball that's so embedded in their society. I mean, it's a rallying point for the Norwegian culture. Those 3 sports right there, that sports that we know, like football or baseball or basketball, we're just not going to get in that inner circle. You know what I mean?
No.
Unfortunately, because I think football is the greatest sport in the world, and I think it's a shame that more Norwegians don't know about it. But again, they don't know what they're not missing. They have no tradition for those sports. So I understand it. I do. I don't like it. I can't stand. I think it's boring. I think it's boring. It's boring to watch on TV. But hey, we live in Norway.
Oh yeah. For like 5 minutes of this conversation, I totally forgot that we were in Norway, which was great.
See, there you go. And that's why I'm talking. It's a cure for my homesickness.
Do this for therapy. I get it. We'll have to have more conversations because it's so nice.
One last question before I let you go. Where do you see the basketball program in Oppdal in 5 years?
Well, I hope it grows. Obviously, I hope that some more parents or coaches, people who understand the game, will come out and help coach, because it's very hard to teach a sport in general, but they're older kids, so they understand a lot faster than a 5-year-old. And I just think it'd be great to have several teams of different ages and be able to go play, the neighboring towns. I know not every neighboring town has a basketball team. I think the nearest is in Trondheim, which is like an hour and a half from here. Yeah. But just for the kids to be able to go experience that, to go play a game against someone else, I think would be awesome.
Yeah.
And, obviously we're in COVID time, so I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. But hopefully this year at some point when things cool down a little bit, we can at least get a little scrimmage game going.
I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but I think that we are going to be under the shadow of COVID for the entirety of 2021. I agree. I think so. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be much different in 6 or 8 or 9 months than it is now. Yeah.
I don't think so either.
But having said that, I think that Norway is doing quite well. There's relatively few deaths. There's relatively few people, even though it has been raising up over the last couple of months, there's relatively few people who are getting infected. And I don't know about up in Oppdal, but down here, people are complying with the masking and, using the hand disinfectant and kind of socially distancing. How are people reacting up there? Are they following the rules?
Yeah, there aren't too strict rules. We don't have to wear masks. It's not a requirement to go into the stores. But I kind of don't understand because Oppdal has so many cabins. So on a weekend like now, the sun is shining, the weather's good. There's so many cabin people coming here, which is great for the local economy. But when you think about the coronavirus, how many more people are going in grocery shopping? And I work at the nursing home here, so I have to be careful where I go and who I'm with and all that. So I don't take that into the nursing home because that'd be bad. But so I don't understand all of the rules. How maybe in the city you have to wear a mask, but if you come up here you don't.
Yeah, that's a little weird. It's a little strange.
It's like make it a national thing or don't. You know, because people are going to be traveling. They're going to take the virus wherever they want. So I don't quite get it, but yeah, I think people comply with whatever the rules are.
Yeah. I would say here in Drummond, about 9.5 out of 10 people that I see out and about are wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. So they seem to be taking it serious. And I think that's been key to Norway having relatively low infection rates.
Well, and honestly, I don't want to make this a longer of a conversation, but I think in Norway, it was an option for a lot of people to work from home.
Yes.
And who did lose their jobs, even if it was temporarily, did get help from NAV, which maybe people in Norway don't realize that in America, we didn't have that luxury. To people that lost their jobs really didn't have money.
Yeah.
So it makes the spread of a virus even more out of control. So I think Norway is very lucky.
Yes.
To have the systems that they do and the money that they have. And I think it's a great thing to be able to support a country, the people.
Norway is, we are quite fortunate to be here. I think we can agree Norway has a shitty athletic system for kids, but the social welfare system is quite good.
Exactly. I agree. Screw the kids' athletics. Let's just, it's a good system.
It is.
It's very good. I'm very happy to be living in this country.
Yeah, as homesick as I am, I cannot say that I'm having a terrible time here because it is good. Things are good here. It's just that underneath all of that, or maybe on top of all that, is a lot of homesickness. But we are doing quite well here, so I can't complain. I don't complain. I don't complain about being here. I just express my home.
It's fun sometimes. Complaining is a little fun. Complaining is fun sometimes, especially during movies, just to make them understand, like, well, it is different. If we were, it's great. It is perfect. If we just pretended all the time like we're happy, that'd be fake.
Yeah, I think I'm approaching it in a good way because I try not to be the one who wallows in negative thought. So I think I do the right thing when I express it this way. I say that I'm having a great time here in Norway and things are going well, but I am extremely homesick. That's fact. There's nothing negative in that. Yeah. I'm accepting the situation I'm in, but I'm also expressing how I truly feel, which is I'm incredibly homesick.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not much of a complainer, but I can't go around and say everything is perfect in Norway all the time. But I don't complain about my problems to people. So
well, it's not perfect here. Like we said, they got a crappy youth athletic system, and there's some other thing. I never say Norway is better or worse than the States. It is what it is. But my heart, my loyalties, all of that is back home in my hometown in the States. But Norway's cool. Norway is cool.
I think sometimes people feel bad for me, especially with the Corona stuff happening in the U.S. right now. When I meet people that I know, they're like, "How is it with your family?" And like they're super concerned, and I'm like, "They're fine. We're fine." I don't know if they think that everyone in the U.S. is poor and in poverty and that. And I'm like, no, we're fine. Not everyone is like this.
Well, a lot of people do think that here in Norway, and it surprises me. I get the same thing. Here's one. A lot of people here in Norway, they assume that because I am black, that I was almost a slave in the States, and experienced just, racism left and right and poverty and all this. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, let me tell you my story. It's not like that. They have these, they have these Hollywood conceptions. Hollywood perceptions of what things are like in the United States, or they have, they watch one little snippet of the national news, which is showing a bad situation in the States, and then they just expand that to just encompass all of America. I think that's what happens.
I'm sure you got a lot of questions from Norwegians and stuff when the whole Black Lives Matter thing came about.
Yeah.
You're a black man from America, and oh my God, are you safe when you go there?
Yeah. Like I say, they'll take an issue, and America has its issues. we know that, but Norwegians will have a tendency to take. Well, here's a good example. I read on NRK on Facebook, on the NRK page. NRK, for those who don't know, is the national it's the national news channel, both TV and radio. So on their Facebook page today, they were talking about the insurrection at the Capitol building, and someone commented under there, and it was embarrassing because I know this person, I know this lady. She commented in all of these tens of thousands of comments. She commented, "Yes, I read that the Chinese are at the northern and southern borders of the United States, and they're just waiting to cross the border when things go crazy at the inauguration on the 20th." And it's like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? Well, what it is, I can imagine what it is Norwegians might read something crazy on Breitbart or something crazy on some, on some crazy right-wing blog, and they don't know how to filter what is conjecture versus what is fact versus what is conspiracy versus what is satire. So they'll take these snippets and they look at it as if it is fact. And it's Now that's an extreme example. And then you can just imagine all of the other misconceptions that they have, that I've had it so horrible in the States because I'm a black man, that I've been poor in my family. I had a guy, get this, and I'm going to let you go here in a minute, but I just want to share this. I had the father of one of our daughter's friends. This guy is an educated man. He's some kind of big time engineer. We were sitting, it was at a 17th of May celebration, the national holiday for Norway. And he was asking me questions. This is the first time we had met. So he's asking me, where are you from in the States? And what brought you here? How did you guys come to come in Norway? So I'm telling him the story of my family. I said, yeah, I'm born and raised in Ohio, but my family, is originally from the South, from Tennessee and Kentucky. So a lot of the old people moved north after the war. And then he says, oh my gosh, yeah, I bet you they would rather move up north than stay down south and pick cotton. And I'm like, oh my God, did this guy really say that? And he didn't smile. He wasn't joking. I don't know, the naive, I don't know, what do you call that? I mean, the ignorance was just amazing.
Naive, I suppose.
Oh my gosh. Hello, Norway. We love you. We love you, Norway.
We do love you, Norway. This is just two Americans talking.
Yeah, just two. Well, hey, we're no better. We think that all Norwegians walk around in wooden shoes and polar bears walk the streets. So see, we have our preconceptions about Norway as well. Somewhere there is a Norwegian in wooden shoes, and somewhere in Norway there are polar bears. So, well, hey, listen,
listen. Good conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your experiences within Norwegian athletics and with your own athletic background. It was so good to talk to you. Thank you for curing my homesickness for the day.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Nice to talk with you, Danielle. Bye, everybody. Thank you.